of surfing down a wave. 10 years since the Dakar last came to North Africa in 2007. So we thought we'd find out what it's been missing in the last 10 years. Welcome to the Sahara. Since its inception in the 70s, the Paris-Dakar had always gone through North Africa. But then in 2008, the threat of terrorism in Mali meant that the race had to be cancelled, which was, well, it was a disaster for a lot of the competitors. So 2007 marked the last time that the rally was actually here, so 10 years ago really. And everyone I've spoken to over the years about the race and subsequent years in South America, which has been brilliant, but they all say it's not the same. North Africa had something about it that was just very, very special and sort of key to what the rally is. You've still got dunes and all sorts of terrain across in South America, but there is something about here that's very special. And so we thought we'd come here and actually sort of find out a bit for ourselves what that's all about.
We're going to do part of one of the classic routes that was used multiple times in the Dakar, always around the 5th or 6th stage. It runs through Morocco from Eritrea to the almost unpronounceable Ouarzazate.
One of the people that I sort of associate the Dakar with, despite the fact he didn't actually have much success, so I suppose two people actually I associate the Dakar with. One who did have a lot of success, Ari Vatanen, for Peugeot, but he also drove for Nissan in his later years, alongside a certain Colin McRae. He was extraordinary skills in Africa, as witness to his multiple safari wins. He treated it with utmost respect, and he drove what was effectively a Navara pickup, obviously a race version. So we thought we'd bring a Navara back here because we did obviously need something that had a chance of coping with dunes and all that sort of thing as well. So yeah, that's why I'm in a Navara. And I like sitting on the back of a pickup. It's just cool.
First up, we let some air out of the tyres and headed to the dunes.
So we're in a sort of oasis, which is kind of sort of the ideal training ground really. But there's still some pretty big slopes here. So we're up here, ease ourselves across the top. Bit of a slide, and then lost gas to get up the top of it again. It might look quite slow, but it's kind of terrifying. You feel sort of in control and sort of not. It's a bit like driving on snow, but different because you don't want to be following tracks that have gone before because that's not where the grip is. And then slopes like that just seem ridiculously steep the first time you go down them, and still do the third time you go down them, to be honest. You have to steer down the slope, which feels almost sort of counterintuitive somehow, but then you're just surfing this big lot of sand down the slope and with your foot buried on the throttle, and somehow it does it. This big heavy car does stuff.
After the dunes, we headed back through a brief bit of civilization and then out into a totally different but equally stunning section of this incredibly diverse route. Although the speed could be much faster away from the deep sand, the threat of rocks, ruts and potholes meant the concentration levels still had to remain incredibly high. The landscape is truly jaw-dropping. In fact, it almost looks too good to be true. Like an advert, or something that should have David Attenborough doing voiceover instead of me.
So the Navara, well, we've got a 2.3 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, diesel obviously, like an awful lot of Dakar cars these days. Although that's strangely because at the altitudes they now go to, actually the only way you can have a turbocharged car is to have a diesel, so that's why they do that.
The scenery just kept on changing. And then we saw perhaps the most extraordinary thing of all.
so cool. You literally couldn't make this up. We've just seen one of the Peugeot Dakar buggies out here testing. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. You hear it miles away, and then just you see this cloud of dust coming, and past it comes one of the two-wheel drive buggies with the huge suspension travel, as if to prove that we are actually on a Dakar stage. I didn't expect to see that. I really didn't.
With evening closing in, we should really have turned and headed for home. But with so little light pollution, the desert is a magical place at night. So we found a decent vantage point to park up, and then waited for the sun to go down.
So we've got our own bivouac now. Obviously, if this was the actual Dakar, it wouldn't be anything like this peaceful, because you'd have all the cars that sort of coming in broken and battered and being sorted out for the next day, and mechanics clanging away whilst knackered drivers stumbled out and tried to go and get some sleep and a shower and all that sort of thing. But hey, we've got the desert to ourselves, and it's just utterly beautiful.
Even a decade on, the Dakar is still in evidence wherever you go in this part of Morocco. I hope that the rally comes back here in the future. After a day retracing even just one part of one stage, it's patently obvious that it's too special a landscape for it not to return.